Good evening everyone, myself Kumud Joshi and I welcome you all to the online class series of Biology class 12. Today we are going to start up with lesson number 2, that is sexual reproduction in flowering plants. In the previous chapter we have discussed what is the various type of the reproduction, that is the sexual reproduction, and the other is the asexual reproduction. Now we are going to proceed up with sexual reproduction, which is a characteristic property of the higher grade of organism, both in the animal kingdom as well as in the plant kingdom. Now talking about sexual reproduction in the flowering plants. Flowering plants means the angiosperms. And when we are talking about the flowering plants, the main reproductive structure which is present in the flowering plant is the flower itself. Now we are going to have a look at the LS of the flower. As we all know that flower is the main reproductive structure present in the angiospermic plants or the flowering plants. So this is the LS of the flower, showing various whorls of the flower. As we all know, flower is a modified shoot and it is the basic reproductive structure, and again when we are defining it, we can say that it is a cyclic structure in which various whorls are present in a cyclic pattern. So when we are talking about these various whorls, the very outermost whorl of the flower is the calyx. The individual member of the calyx are known as sepals, and the number of the sepals are ranging from 1 to 5. The coloration of these sepals is either dark green to light green, having various tints and tones. Now the basic function of these sepals is to provide support to the other whorls of the flower, as well as to provide protection to the other whorls of the flowers when they are present in the bud condition. Now coming up to the second whorl of the flower, it is known as corolla. Corolla, the individual member are known as petals. Now talking about the number of the petals, they may range up from few to infinity. They may have varied shape, size and forms. They may vary in their coloration also. They can be very brightly colored. They may be colorless. They may be white. They may be shaded even. They may even possess the odor, that is the specific type of a smell or the fragrance which we usually observe in the flowers. The basic function of corolla is to attract the various biotic agencies towards itself. Now, talking about the third word of the flower is, that is androecium. When we are talking about the androecium, the individual member is known as the stamen, and the number of the stamen, they may range up from few to infinity. When they are present more in number, they may be grouped in a number of ways. That is, they are having various patterns. Either they may be attached to the petals, or they may be found attached to the gynoecium. They may be smaller enough that they are enclosed within the flower itself, or they may be long enough so that they can come out of the flower. The androecium, when we are talking about the androecium, the individual member, that is the stamen. Stamen comprises of two parts. That is, first is the anther lobe and the other is the filament, stalk-like filament. Now, this anther lobe, it is the main place where the male gametes are formed. That is, the gametogenesis takes place over here. That is, the microspores are formed in this place. Filament is a long slender stalk-like structure which provide support to the anther lobe. So in all we can say that it is the male reproductive part of the flower. Now coming up to the fourth world, that is the gynoecium, which is the very innermost world of the flower. And when we are talking about the innermost world, it is again, when we are talking about the number may range either from 1 to 2 or 3, not more than that. They may be fused or they may be separated from one another. So when we are talking about gynoecium, the individual member is known as the carpel or the pistil. And when we are talking about the carpel or the pistil, here we can see the magnified view of the carpel or the pistil, and it is again divided into three distinct parts. The very uppermost part is known as stigma. The stigma is a disc-like structure which have got various modifications. That is, it may either have a gelatinous coating on itself so that it can stick up the pollen grains that are shaded up upon it by various pollinating agencies, or it may have hook-like or spine-like structures, or it may have got bristle-like structures. Then it is a place where the pollen pistil interaction takes place. That is, it helps in the identification of the pollen grains, whether the pollen grains are of the same species or not. If they are of the same species, then only the further act of fertilization takes place over here. Otherwise, the pollen grains are not allowed to form the pollen tube. That is, the further act of fertilization stops up over here. So, this place is a very important part of the gynoecium as well as of the flower itself. Now, when we are talking about the style is a long, slender, neck-like structure which is again very, very important. Hence, it helps in the formation of the pollen tube through which the male generative cells are going to move towards the female generative cell. Then, last part is the ovary. The ovary is a basal, swollen-like structure which inhabits the ovule in itself. Here the ovule is present, in which lies the female gamete. So this is the overall view of the gynoecium, that is the carpel or the pistil. So here we have completed up with the alias of the flower. Now talking about the various types of the flowers. Flowers, as I have told you all, flowers are the main reproductive structures. Now flowers can be of different types. That is, they may contain both the reproductive structures or they may not contain both the reproductive structures. Both the reproductive structure means, when I am talking about the reproductive structures, these are the gynoecium and the androecium, that is the male reproductive structure as well as the female reproductive. Gynoecium represents the female reproductive part of the flower, and androecium represents the male reproductive part of the flower. Here corolla and calyx, they are the accessory whorls which helps in pollinating act, that is they help in pollination, attracting the various biotic agencies, that is they are performing the side functions. They are not itself helping out in the act of reproduction. So depending upon that, flowers can be categorized in two categories, that is the flowers can be either unisexual flowers or they may be bisexual flowers. Those flowers which contain only the one of the reproductive part, that is either the male reproductive part or the female reproductive part, they are said to be the unisexual flowers, and they may be accordingly the pistillate flowers or the staminate flowers. Pistillate flowers means those flowers which contains only the female reproductive part, that is the gynoecium or the carpel or the pistil, and staminate are those flowers which contains only the stamens. They are said to be the staminate flowers, that is they are the male flowers, and the female flowers separately borne on different plants. Very good example of this is papaya. Now talking about the bisexual flowers, bisexual flowers are those flowers which contains both the male as well as the female reproductive parts. That is, as we have seen in this flower, it is containing both the female as well as the male reproductive part, that is both the androecium and the gynoecium are present in the same flower. These type of the flowers help in self-pollination, whereas in unisexual flowers always cross-pollination is observed. That is facility that is provided by the nature. Now very good examples of bisexual flowers are hibiscus, rose, mango, etc. etc. From tomorrow onwards we are going to move ahead with gametogenesis as seen in the male male reproductive part, that is the microspores, that is the anther lobe. Thank you.